this computer. So awesome. I think we are recording.
And greetings from Toronto.
Toronto, nice. And
Australia. So we're really
Whoa.
international.
This is
Mr.
like
Worldwide.
a mini WordCamp.
Nah, you're just making up places now. It's nice and easy in France.
And welcome from my bedroom in Zagreb, Croatia. So this is like a, it reminds me of Eurovision. 12 points.
Yeah, 10 points, 12
Good
points.
evening.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we can start. Thank you all for coming from all around the world. I hope that you have entered this raffle. We'll have it at the end of the talks. Welcome to the 11th Zagreb WordPress Meetup, virtual again. And like some general rules, I'm not sure why I always have this general rules slide, because we don't have like allowed attendees to speak. So it's kind of, I don't know, it was automatic. But yeah, if you have any questions, you can ask them in the Q&A part. And then the speakers will answer them at the end of their presentation. And we'll also have that little meetup chat after the meetup. So then we'll be able to like communicate face to face, which is a great idea. And we should definitely implement this for the future. Okay, so this is like a small table of contents, what you're going to hear today. We have an interesting theme from Maciek about static WordPress. And then after that, we'll hear more about the speed of your site using Gutenberg from Kruno. And after that, we'll have our raffle. Okay, so Goran, if you want to take over.
Yeah, of course. So great thank you to our sponsors. So Hosting Plus for hosting our WordPress community website, JetBrains for licensing, Weglot, also Cinnamon, Infinum and Cinnamon companies that Dennis said I work for, and Etocratia for some media reach to cover. And that's it for now. So welcome all to 11th WordPress Zagreb Meetup. Here's some social media numbers. So we are active on Facebook, in a Facebook group. It's over the 6,000 people there. So it's quite a big community. We also on a meetup.com group. We have two groups, WordPress Croatia. It's like a broader group for all people from Croatia and for all meetups from all cities. And we have our Meetup Zagreb group with 600 something, a little over the 600 people. And we have also Twitter account with also some 673 people on its followers. So it's also great numbers, and we are exponentially growing from month to month. So from 2 months to 2 months. So it's good to see that we are growing. Yeah.
Okay,
especially on Twitter, yeah.
Yeah, because it was like stagnating a bit.
Yeah, because we neglected it also because it's not so popular network in Croatia, and we just okay, Twitter. But yeah, it's instead it's crazy. Yeah, we're also using Slack for communication for our community. So here's the link. Join us. Feel free to join us. Sometimes we need to approve your requests. Sometimes not. It just there is no rule, but just no hesitations. Just click on vphrslack.com and you will join. We have a few channels on there, some random, some Zagreb specific, some Croatian, and some you can change some experiences, maybe find like a new project or new deal, new job or something. So it's good to be on our Slack. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And also a call for speakers for May. So we have every 2 months we have this meetup. So immediately after this meetup, we're starting to collect some speakers for the May. So for now, I think we have one place filled. So there's still 2 spots left. So just hurry up. Let's now ping us on Facebook, on Slack, on what you prefer, and we will see what can we do. So thank you all again, and now please enjoy the presentation from Maciek and from Kronoslav.
Okay, so I will share my screen. I will just find, it should be, wait a second, screen. Okay, screen 2, sure. Okay, so today I will talk a bit how to make our WordPress sites much faster and much more secure, thanks to one simple trick. So we'll just convert everything into HTML because this is the simplest way to do it. My name is Maciek Palmowski. I work at the Polish company called Buddy. And if you are interested in trying out one of the simplest CI/CD software out there, really go to BuddyWorks and try it. It's really nice. And I'm also on WordPress.org, so I'm also a contributor there. So. Okay, so let's start with a small comparison. This is a WordPress site. It's my own WPOs, which is a newsletter. And this is the same site converted into static. Probably you shouldn't see any difference between them. I mean, almost any difference, because there is one really big difference. Response time. Before I continue, let me just tell that I'm using, I think, the cheapest hosting in Poland there is. I pay for it about a bit less than €2 per month, and I have SSH access. So this was important. It should be cheap and has SSH access, and this is what I get for €2. So I got the average response time about 3 seconds. It's a lot. The same site converted into static gave me 16 milliseconds. So the difference is really enormous. And I think this should really caught a bit of your attention. So let me start with showing you the difference between the static and the dynamic website. So let's start with the typical dynamic website. It's when you enter some URL into your browser, it goes to the server collects the data from the database, and then everything goes back to your browser. It works, but it's not too efficient, because every time we have to ask the database for the same data, which especially on, for example, on blogs, doesn't have too many sense, because the same blog post doesn't change in most cases, from one visit to another. That's why at some point, most of us start using some layer of cache. With this, it looks almost the same, but the first time we visit a URL, it's of course served, the database is asked, but also we try to save this website as a static HTML. So the second user that will visit the same page will get the static HTML site. Thanks to this, it's much faster, but there is still a need for the database, because from time to time, either we purge the cache, or after publishing of a new website, it has to be generated for the first time. So it's much better than the typical approach without cache, but it still can have some bottlenecks. And this is the static approach. Under this position called build, we just save the whole website into HTML. So before even deploying it to the server, we just go page by page, save it as HTML, and when we have everything, then we put it on the server. Thanks to this, every time we ask the server for something, we just serve him the pure static HTML. There is no need for database, there is no need for PHP, or if you are having some other language, it's also no need for it. Everything is pure HTML. So what are the pros of converting to static? First of all, speed. This is something I already showed. Why is it faster? Mostly because it's simpler. First of all, we don't have any database, and database is a quite common bottleneck. Also, there is no parsing needed. There is no need for PHP. There is no need for any PHP modules. So like I said, the server is simple. Also, the setup is much easier because the server has to just do one thing, serve HTML, nothing else. And this small test I have shown you at the beginning, it was I tested it using an application called Loader.io, and with 5 clients every second for 30 seconds, I got this almost 3 seconds average response, and it was WordPress without cache. After enabling cache, it was much better because it was only almost 350 milliseconds. Why so much? Because some of the responses wasn't cached at the beginning. The probably first 5 clients got the uncached version, and since the 6th client that got the cached version, the average response time has dropped. And this is the static WordPress. It was 16 milliseconds. So as you see, the difference is just enormous. But I decided to go one step forward and decided to try how this my great and very cheap hosting will handle 50 clients every second for 30 seconds. So without cache, it just didn't make it. The only thing I got was 100% error rate, and that's all. With cache, it was better because it was 600 milliseconds, but 30% error rate, so still quite poor. And with static, it wasn't a problem. It just it was even a bit faster, but it was a bit stroke of luck. It's all the results from static were around 12 to 16, and that's all. So as you see, not only the difference in time is huge, it was just only thanks to using static, I was able to handle bigger traffic. And I even tested at some point using, if I remember, 5,000 clients per second, and it wasn't a problem. So as you see, the speed is one of the most, if the speed is very important for you, really go static. Another thing is security. Why? First of all, we can separate the HTML version from the WordPress. So we can try to secure the WordPress server in any way we can, and we don't have to worry it will have any effect on the HTML version, which is really great. Also, we don't have to have WordPress publicly. We can have it only on our local host, especially if we are using it just for our small private website. So we can have it only on our computer, and we don't have to worry that someone will hack our publicly available WordPress, because it's only on our end. As you all know, WordPress doesn't have the best reputation in terms of security, which isn't quite true, because WordPress, all in all, is quite secure. The most problem is the user who forgets to either update the plugins or just have a simple password like admin or something like this. But still, there are a lot of attack vectors. So we have the typical denial of service. There can be bugs in core, in plugins, in themes. Someone can hack into our FTP or SFTP account. There may be a brute force attack on WP admin. Malware is also a quite similar attack a quite popular attack vector. Someone also can take over our DNS server and redirect our domain to some other server. And there can be an outdated PHP version, and PHP can be an attack vector. After converting to static, some of those attack vectors are gone, and we are only left with denial of service, which becomes a lot harder because, as you saw, it's not so easy to bring down a static website, and especially if we'll host it also with some content delivery network like Cloudflare. They still can hack into our FTP or SFTP account or to our DNS, but all of those things aren't related to WordPress at all. So there are a lot less attack vectors, and none of them is related to WordPress. So we don't have to worry about so many things. Another thing why it's really worth to convert to static is the cost of hosting. Because like I mentioned, in my case, €2 per month. And why? Because simple hosting just costs less. We don't need all those fancy tools because, for example, Kinsta has a lot of great tools that make developing and trying to find bottlenecks easier. But when we will convert our website to static, we just won't have those problems. So we won't need those tools and we won't need such an expensive hosting. There are also some free alternatives. We can use, for example, GitHub Pages or Netlify until some, I don't remember how much was this free tier, but there is, if I remember, 1 giga space or something like this. So it's for our small private websites, why not? And let's compare it with typical WordPress hosting. I checked SiteGround, Kinsta, and other popular hosting options, and it was above 12 to 20 euros per month per site. And I pay, like I said, €2 per month, and I have 2 websites there. So it's almost can be cheaper. And also it gives us peace of mind because there are a lot less things that can break. I already told how less things we will need. So if we won't have so many things on our servers, they just can't break and we don't have to worry about them. Also, we can use, like I also mentioned it before, we can use CDN, which will not only give us great speed all over the world, but it will also protect us from denial of service. But for example, I had this problem last week. The hosting I was using just had a problem for an hour or 2, but already the whole content was cached across the CDN, and no one even noticed that I have some problems with my hosting. And based on this, the site will just work. And this is the main thing we want from our website, to work. Of course, there are no perfect solutions. Even converting to static with all those pros I mentioned have some of cons. So first of all, not every website can be converted. Okay, this is a bit, it depends because for me, static website is when we really convert everything into HTML. Of course, thanks to Jamstack and APIs, we can connect and we can try to connect those options I mentioned here. So we can have user profiles, we can have dynamic content and so on, but it will need some database, it will need some more power from our hosting. And for me, static is just when everything is converted and we don't need any database. So if your website is dynamic in any way, probably you won't be able to convert it. On the other hand, some parts will need some workaround because we won't have, for example, PHP on our server. So we won't have forms and we won't be able to send them. But we can use some third-party tools. There is Qt, there is Basin. For search, we can use Algolia. And even services like Stratic that has, and Stratic is for converting website into static. They have this search option for WordPress, and it's also using Algolia. For comments, we can use Replybox or Discuss, which most of us are already using, so we won't even see any change. And we can even think about e-commerce using Snipcart or Commerce Layer. So everything is possible. It will just need few workarounds. Also, the thing that is a bit different than always is the build process itself, because we are probably a bit used to the fact that every time we will click the update button or publish button, the new page will appear or will be updated. With static, we have to we have to remember to rebuild everything. Of course, with many of APIs or some of plugins have the possibility to do it automatically on clicking on publish, but in some cases we just have to remember about it. And also it takes some extra time because it depends on the number of pages we have on our website, but still it won't be as immediate as always. So we just have to get used to it. And sometimes it may take too long because it's quite simple. The more posts we have, the more the build time takes. And it will increase with every new post. It's quite logical. Of course, we can fight it thanks to either having a better server on which we are building our website, or we can just change the stack we are using to build it. For example, Hugo is like created for speed. There isn't any faster static site generator. So if you need to convert a lot of posts, use Hugo. But still, there may be a moment when you will have so many posts and you will publish so often that going static will be more of a problem than any advantage for you. And with this, now it's time to show me how we can do it, because there are three main approaches. First of all, we're using WordPress, so there is a plugin for this, of course. We can use WP to static, and from what I saw, we have the author in the audience today, so probably we can talk with him after my talk. We have static HTML output, we can have simply static, and there are probably few more of them. Then it's great to connect it with WP CLI, because thanks to this, we won't have to worry about any timeouts or anything. And in the end, it's also a great practice to connect it with some CI/CD like Buddy, like GitHub Actions, like Travis, or whatever. There's a lot of this, because we can automate everything, we can orchestrate it, we can add some other actions, and we can just connect everything. So we can, having just one click, it will launch all the actions we need, and we won't have to worry about what is happening. It's really a good approach because it's cheap. In my case, I am paying 0 for Bodyworks because I was using always the free tier, and now I'm working there, so gave me the unlimited version, so it's really cool. And next, I'm using free Cloudflare because it's free. I'm using this hosting that I mentioned that it's €2. And I'm using simply HTML output and WP2 static, which are both free. So it's really a very cheap way to do it. I have full control over the whole process. This may be really cool if you love to play with such things. And I really always have to know what is happening under the hood. I really don't like those moments when some magic is happening and I have some result. And I really prefer to have it a bit slower, but really know step by step what is happening, and in the worst case, what have I done wrong? Because probably in most cases it will be my fault that I did something wrong. And because this is a WordPress plugin, it's really quite compatible out of the box with few of other plugins. For example, every plugin that will filter content in some way, it will work just like that, out of the box. So if we need an approach that is compatible out of the box and we don't want to spend too much time on it, using WordPress plugin will be a great way. On the other hand, we can use some static site generators. We have Gatsby, we have Gridsome, Hugo, Elemently, and like million of others. There is a website that lists, I think, most of the static site generators, and I think that every day one new static site generator is born. So we can connect it with some API from WordPress, so either the REST API or the GraphQL API. And again, I think it's a really great practice to connect it with CI/CD to make it a bit more automated. With this approach, again, it's cheap because most of those site generators are also free. We can use other programming languages. It depends what we want. In my case, I really like PHP, so I really like using PHP every time. But if some of you prefer using React or something else, this will be a really great way to connect it with WordPress. It's a bit more problematic in terms of compatibility with plugins, but the good news that this is really changing, because I think currently most of the popular plugins have REST API endpoints and really a lot of them are having also the GraphQL endpoint. So this is changing, and probably in half a year I can mark it as the compatibility is at the similar level with the plugin approach. And the third way, we can use the service. There is static, there is shifter, there are flat sites, and there are probably some others, but I think those are the most popular out there. And it's more expensive. I think from what I remember, static was about $20 per month for the cheapest version. We don't almost have any control over the process. We hit the button and the magic happens. The good news, everything is working, because I really tried it. I was really nicely surprised when I tried static for the first time, and after 15 minutes I got everything up and running. So it was really great, and it worked really fast, so why not? And also the good news that some of those services have some integrations out of the box. For example, again, static, because I use it the most. They have you can use search out of the box. You can integrate contact form 7 and some other contact forms. And there are, from what I remember, there were about 12 or more integrations, and it's growing. So it's really worth to, if we need some integrations, it's really worth to check, because maybe such services will solve this for us. So overall, is it worth it? You know, we are from the IT, so there is only one possible answer. That depends, of course. There isn't one simple answer. I would say, if you don't have any login or registration feature, and you have a site that is just for reading, like a business site, your blog, a portfolio, or something like this, or for example, in current times, if you have a site that should inform people about what is happening with the pandemic, really going static is a great way. And also, it's also important you are not focused on adding a new post every second, because you may hit the moment when the build process will take much more time than adding the new post. So, but if you have this quite static site that is for reading, really convert it into full static, you will save money, and you will have a peace of mind and much less things to worry about. And now let me show you one real life example. I showed it at the beginning, and this is, like I said, my site, it was WPOs. And I decided to convert it to static because I needed to, first of all, I didn't want to spend any money, and I wanted to have my website really fast all over the world. So I have one server with this SSH access. This is important because I need to run those WP-CLI commands. WordPress is hidden under a subdomain. The static versions are on the top level domains, and I'm using Cloudster. So that's all from about the static structure, about the server structure. There's no magic here. Currently, I'm still using static HTML output, and I'm exporting everything as a zip. And with SSH, I'm having some magical process that unzips everything and moves some other files around. What is also important is to exclude URLs we don't need, because the build will be much faster thanks to this. And in the end, I run my CI/CD. First, I run this WP to static or static HTML output. It depends, because I'm trying with both. Next step, I run some server operations. So I move all the things from WP content /uploads to the static site. And in the end, I first fix the htaccess to be sure that it's correct. And I purge Cloudflare cache. In the end, 30 pages takes on this. Remember, this is a really poor server. It's really important for me to remind about this. It takes about 2 or 3 minutes. 200 pages takes about 4 or 5. But I started testing the new version of WP to static, and I was able to make more than 200 pages in about 2 minutes. So even playing around with your software can make a lot of difference. And if you would like to read more about how to convert your website, go to Bodyworks. There is a guide about this. I will share my presentation, so you'll have the possibility just to click on it. And are there any questions? That's all.
I can only clap. Thank you for the presentation. If anybody has any kind of questions, they can just like raise their hands or ask them in a chat or anywhere, and I can even allow people to talk so that you can like ask the question in person, because we won't see you. Anybody? Nobody. I have one question. So it was a great presentation. If you have some kind of like third-party API integrations or stuff like that, when you have to connect to like a lot of services to do your job, you probably wouldn't recommend going static, right? Or can you maybe divide like parts of your websites that you could? Like,
I know what you mean. It's again a bit. It depends. For me, I really wouldn't like this approach, because going static just to have lots and lots of APIs, it's like, I don't think it's a good way. But on the other hand, the whole Jamstack approach lives on such approach. So we have one website and we have like zillions of APIs for like everything. So it really depends on what you like. Personally, I wouldn't like it. I would prefer to have everything, to have control about everything or almost everything, because personally, I'm also using Algolia as one of the only third-party tools that there is. And but I know that a lot of people will like to connect with other APIs and they don't see a problem with it. Also, for me, I also don't like this approach with many third-party APIs, because it starts to cost a lot of money, because you will have more and more tools and they will start to cost you money. And at some point, you will see that maybe going static plus all those third-party integrations is much more expensive than just buying yourself a better server. But it really depends on the situation and on what you like or not. Personally, I don't like such approaches.
Okay, so Michael Walker has a question. I can actually allow Michael to talk. So let me just see if this works. And I can allow people who raised their hands to talk as well. So, Michael, if you want to, you can unmute and you can ask yourself, and or maybe I can ask instead. So if Michael doesn't want to speak. So he asked, can you speak about the implications of handing off a static site to a client? Is the build easy enough to trigger for non-technical users? That's a great question.
It can be. It's a bit, and again, our favorite answer for everything, it depends.
It depends.
Because like I mentioned, in my example, I use CI/CD, and Buddy, for example, has an API. So it's really easy to connect a WordPress action that, for example, every time we publish a new site or we save, the CI/CD process runs. So if you have a developer that will build it once, it's really easy. Also, some of the plugins also have this possibility, but probably you won't use WP-CLI then, and it may result in some timeouts. So sometimes it could be tricky. It also depends on how big your website is. But if you are using a service like Static, for example, there is just a button, click to publish, and that's all. You have to wait 2 seconds. So it may be easy. It may be easy. It depends how it was made by the developer for the first time.
So, I think Lovro, you are actually unmuted, so you can ask a question if you want to.
Okay. Hello. It was more like a comment than a question. But I was thinking, why even bother with WordPress? If you are going static, you can choose building static site, or there are lots of static site generators like CMSs. I'm not quite familiar with them. I think Jenkins is one of them. Okay, I see the point. Maybe you gave opportunity to users to enter their content because they are not technically capable.
Exactly.
And then you are starting building process to update everything.
Exactly, because WordPress is really easy for the users. So, and from my experience, I really see that they don't have a problem with using it. And when we also add the thing that I don't think there is another CMS that has so many translations into almost every language, then really WordPress doesn't have, and I think there are really only few other CMSs that could be so accessible to others on every layer. I mean, not only in accessibility, but the language barrier, the ease of use, and so on. And so let's leave the users the thing they know, and they know how to use it. And for us engineers, let's think how to convert what they created into the way that will be served all around the world in a very fast way.
Okay, thank you.
Have you ever done a multilingual static site?
I think I tried once. It was more a bit of playing around with it, but it was doable with WPML, and it worked.
So basically, what it did, like if you set your URL settings to be like /en or /d or whatever languages, it would just convert it to that subfolder as a static site, right?
Exactly, just like that. I didn't try what would happen with the subdomains, but I think it would be also doable in some way, especially that for example, WP to static has a lot of filters, so you can either manually add some website, some URLs, or get rid of someone. So it should be doable in any way.
And if you were to say like the complexity of the setup, so people who are working in agencies, they usually have like DevOps engineers, and we just say, please configure a server for us, and they do all the stuff. But not a lot of people have this privilege, so to say. And for you, if you had to like explain the complexity of setting everything up, is it worth it? Or
It's
how much time would you have to spend to set everything up, like, approximately?
The first time I started creating my process, and I would say it took me with all the testing and so on about 4 or 5 hours. But for the second website, I just changed 2 or 3 variables, and it was all. So like always, the first time is the hardest, and then it's really simple, especially when you are using some CI/CD, because then you think about it in a bit different way. So you always try to automate everything, to have some processes, and then so you can clone some templates of actions and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So for my first website, it took few hours, and later on it was just seconds, because I remember for the first time to set everything as variable, so it made all my work easier.
Mm-hmm.
But really using WP to static from WP CLI is really easy. So
yes, because with your presentation, I'm just like thinking about I should probably like convert my site to static site. It will
exactly.
be a lot faster. I mean, it's good. I ran like some ping-down test tools because I just wanted to make sure like what was the speed of my site, and I'm using WordPress with the Rocket Cache enabled.
Mm-hmm.
And from Europe, it was around 200 milliseconds, which is okay. But from North America, it was like 1 second, and I was like, oh.
Yes, exactly. And when you would convert it into static, then you could use Cloudflare with the whole page caching.
Mm-hmm.
For example, WP alls is cached for 1 week, because I know that
that's okay.
issue is every next issue goes on Monday or Tuesday, so I can cache everything for 1 week, and I don't have to worry about it.
And what's the pricing of Cloudflare? Do they have like a free tier?
Zero. It's zero.
Oh.
It will be enough for because I think that the cloud workers are a paid feature from some point. Mm-hmm. And if you would like more page rules, when to cache or when not, I think that 4 rules are for free for each website. So it's really enough for most of sites that are just for reading.
That's nice to know. I might play around with this to convert my sites. Especially the local host part really was like a nice touch. I don't have to host anything WordPress on the server.
Exactly, and you can push everything to GitHub Pages, and it will be.
Yeah.
You won't even need Cloudflare, because GitHub Pages will take care of it.
Yeah. And that's interesting.
Yeah, I really recommend it. It's for many years I also was a bit skeptical about it. The first time I played with static sites was because we had to we created some landing page, and about 2 days before the deadline, the client mentioned that, oh, and one thing, in this place when we will be showing this landing page, there is a chance there won't be any internet at all. Great. Great. And what to do? So I just entered statics, WordPress to static, and that's how my adventure with WP to static started. And it was amazing. In just a few minutes, we were able to convert everything. Then we just had to find some specific URLs we had to just turn off, and everything was working after a few hours. without them.
How is static working with like the AMP accelerated pages? Did you maybe look into that? Because that seems to be like all the hype now these days. I mean, at least this from Google.
The good news is that from what I know at this point, AMP is like is getting less and less popular.
Yeah.
And even Google, because at some point, the only chance to have your article promoted at the top of Google was to have the AMP version. Mm-hmm. Now, if your website is fast enough, it's enough to be shown on the top. So I think that because of what people are doing with their websites, how they're optimizing it, even Google thought that, okay, maybe the AMP was a great thing just to start this whole movement about optimization. But overall, and also AMP, especially last time, has some poor press. They have some, if I remember, there is some process about them and about stealing some data and so on. So like
GDPR.
Sadly, Google.
Yeah.
They became a bit evil.
Became. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for Maciek? Don't be shy. I've actually managed to like just add you to the list, so you can just ask away. Don't be shy. Maybe we won't even have to switch to the meeting part to see each other, because I can now see all the panelists, all the attendees, plus the panelists. Okay, so if there aren't any questions and Kruno is here, then I think we can move with our second theme. Also, don't forget to sign up for the raffle. So it's bit.ly/11WP Meetup ZG. We have 9 people signed up so far, so
the chances are good.
Yeah, your chances are definitely good. Awesome. So okay, Kruno, you can start with your presentation.
Okay, thanks a lot. So hi everyone, my name is Kruno Golubić, and today I would like to talk about a topic which can be also considered like continuation of the previous lecture, because it's also related to the speed of WordPress sites and why should you care about it, and where can you place Gutenberg in this story? So what does it all have to do with Gutenberg? Just a little introduction about me. I've been creating websites for quite a few years now. I've created my first website back in the mid-90s. I've been working in the IT for more than 20 years, and actually due to the WordPress community, I got the job where I'm working at the moment. I'm working as a technical documentation assistant and OnTheGoSystems. And tomorrow will be 2 years since I gave my first talk at WordPress Meetup. It was the first Zagreb WordPress Meetup. And that time I was talking about our product, Toolset Blocks, that was in the closed beta at the moment. And so 2 years later, I'm still talking about something related to the Blocks block editor. So as you can see, Gutenberg has strongly affected the way that I work, and even the scope of my job has changed a lot because of the Gutenberg. So where do I work? I work as a contractor for the company called OnTheGoSystems. Maybe it is best known by the 2 plugins that we produce, WPML and Toolset. We are a full remote company. Over 100 people work at the moment for the company. We come from all over the world. And so this is really good place to work at. So if you're looking for a job, take a look at our website. We almost always have some kind of positions opened up. I know that currently we also have a few positions open, so please feel free to take a look. When I started working at the OnTheGoSystems, that was actually my first job related to the WordPress. Before that, I've worked with different CMSs. I worked with exotic stuff like Zoops. I've used things like DNN based on .NET, Joomla, Typo, you know, you name it, I've used it. And for most of those editors, one of the first things that those CMSs that I've installed or I've seen people installing was some kind of what you see is what you get editor. So we have had TinyMCA almost everywhere. And then the WordPress came and said, okay, we want to do a different kind of editing. And we are now moving towards front-side editing. And they've created the Gutenberg. Gutenberg or block editor, it's the same thing. You will find different names for the same thing. So what was the idea behind it? The idea was to accelerate and make publication of information on WordPress-based site a lot easier. Easier maybe for the new users. You know, for those of us that have used WordPress before, we are familiar with the shortcodes and everything that is behind what user sees when he takes a look at the backend. So there was a lot of resentment when Gutenberg was introduced, and you can see that still the classic editor is one of the plugins that is most installed. If you take a look at the statistics at WP.org repository, but Gutenberg is very much alive. Just I think about one and a half months ago, 100th release of the Gutenberg was made, and I've checked some numbers yesterday. These numbers don't take into consideration all of the websites that run WordPress, but only a part of it. And you can see that there are millions of active installations of the Gutenberg. So Gutenberg is here, and whether you love it or not, it is here to stay. One of the things when you try to Google for Gutenberg and speed, you know, you will find a lot of different articles where they compare Gutenberg to other page builders. Although I must say Gutenberg isn't a page builder per se, you know, at least not for now. And you will find different versions. You will find for the same plugins and page builders compared to the Gutenberg, one will claim, okay, Gutenberg is faster than your favorite page builder, or Gutenberg is slower. The numbers that are shown doesn't mean a thing. The real numbers are the ones that you cannot read in this article, but take a look at here. So you will find opposite information on the same topic. But lately, if you take a look at the articles that have been published in the last couple of months, you will see a trend of articles that say that Gutenberg really is faster than some of the other solutions that people use for page building. One of the things, you know, that colleague of mine, Dario, has mentioned me, he has asked me, did you see that article by WP Rocket? They've switched also to Gutenberg. I mean, when you have a company that builds plugins, there are, well, main purpose of that plugin is to make your site faster, you know. And if they say, okay, we decided to go the Gutenberg way to make it even faster, then okay, there must be something behind all of this Gutenberg and speed thing. So you will find this presentation, links to all of the articles that I'm mentioning now. So I won't go through all of them and quote them, but I really like this piece by WP Rocket because it shows all of the potential pitfalls and their experience with moving to Gutenberg. And you can read about the combination which they've used, which other plugins, and how they've achieved their ultimate goal. So why should you care about the speed? Well, back to the Google. Some time ago, they've announced that in May 2021, so under 2 months from today, they will be rolling out another update to their algorithm. And because of that, they will take into the consideration some new signals when they will be calculating the rankings. They call these signals Web Vitals. And for this update, because with Google, the only thing that it's constant is those updates and changes to the algorithm. They will target specifically 3 areas, that is loading, interactivity, and visual stability. Don't panic yet. If you didn't start to do anything about these changes that are upcoming, or if this is the first time that you've heard about it, Google has said, no, this won't be like off and on switch. This won't be the change that will come overnight. As with each update, it will be a graduate rollout. So you still have time, and you have 1 month, because some of the things I will try to summarize what you can do and what you should do as soon as possible if you want to keep your existing Google ratings, or maybe even take advantage of the fact that maybe your competitors won't do it so soon. So these small changes can even give you an edge in certain cases. So let us take a look at those Web Vitals that are coming now. Web Vitals is actually an initiative that Google has started, and the goal is to provide unified signals, so you would exactly know what you need to do to give your users a great experience of the website. And those 3 core Web Vitals are LCP, largest contentful paint. It is the time needed to load the page. Actually, it takes into the consideration something called viewport. As always, green means good, yellow means improvement, red is poor. So this will actually measure the time loading of the largest visible image or block or a text on your website. How long does it take for that content to load? Okay, you have a loaded content, but then most of the websites today are interactive, or they can accept input from a user or even expect it. So first, input delay. How long does it take until your website can respond to user action? In loading time, seconds are tolerated. In the input delay, you can see that milliseconds are the measurements that are being taken into the consideration. And the third one is cumulative layout shift. It is actually the fact when you're loading the page, do you see the movement of the elements? Do you have placeholders all in the place, or as the page loads, will the elements fly in front of the user's eyes and move around, something like that? So this is also something that will be taken into the consideration. How can you test your site? Well, as always, Google provides tools and guidances when they implement something new or when they propose something new. We have had page speed insights for quite some time. So here I've created the comparison, for the 2 sites, WordPress.com and WordPress.org. And you can see that the Google still does and favors mobile first approach. So when you go to the page insights, you need to switch to the desktop version if you are not interested in mobile users. If you're kind of businesses that you don't care about them, then maybe the desktop is better suited for you. In the mobile version, besides the elements and the layouts and the way things are ordered, it also simulates the connection that has less bandwidth. So this is for good test for slower connections. Again, you can see in the report that goes below that image that you've seen just on the previous slide, you will see some kind of recommendations, green, red, yellow, you know, what needs to be fixed, what can you do to get a better results, what are the bad things, you know, are they the size of your files, or is there something wrong with the structure? Did you perhaps forget to put up explicitly, you know, the size of the images that will be served, and so on. When you're taking a look at the scores, the whole scoreboard goes between 0 and 100. 0 to 50 is poor, 50 to 89, that is an orange. Yellow one means okay, it's good, but it needs improvement. And only above 90 to 100, you will get a good mark. So what makes your site slow and how can you fix it? If you run a WordPress site, you probably have you have few plugins installed on it, you know, and that's one thing that definitely adds some overload, because every plugin that you install will also add some JavaScript and CSS to the content that is being loaded at the time, even if that particular plugin isn't used on the page that is being rendered, you know, so it still takes up some resources. Sure, for the local, when users are browsing, yeah, those resources are getting cached on their computer. So the next time they open that page or the next page that uses those same scripts, they will use the local cache, but Google doesn't care about it, or it won't care about it, because it will take a look, okay, I will load this site, oh, it's slow. On this one alone, it's slow. And you can get penalized for that. So what can you do to keep your score good or even to improve it? So I would start with a server and a host. You know, if you have a server that has poor performance, no other optimization can bring you above the surface. I mean, virtual private servers are great, but if you're trying to run a web shop that has 100,000 products and it's multilingual and it has 10 languages, and you're using some cheap shared hosting just because it says it's unlimited, well, you will hit the brick wall pretty fast, because it's not just a matter of Google that it won't like you. Users don't want to wait for page to show up to render. So take a look at the performance of your server. Take a look at the theme that you're using. Just because the theme says, oh, this is a lightweight theme, it doesn't mean that it really is. Take a look at the CSS files and JS files that are part of that theme. Third bullet is probably the hardest one. Reduce the number of plugins. People like plugins because they make their life easier when they're creating a content. So, oh, this plugin will add me this one feature, this will add me another feature, and then they install 10 different plugins which offer 100 features but use only 10 of them, and they probably overlap. You know, speed of a site is often victim of the desire to develop a site very fast. You put up a page builder because you can do things quickly with the page builder without any thinking or taking into the consideration what will be the consequences for that website and those pages, you know. So if you can shave off something, some plugin, if you can find, you know, a way, a trick, you know, to replace one plugin with another or to include something else, that would be great. Whenever you can use cache plugin, use at least page caching level and use content delivery networks. Use lazy loading for all of your large resources, you know, like Google Analytics, Facebook Pixel, or images, you know, so they would be placed at the very end, you know, so they don't start loading up until the whole of the page is loaded. With the images, optimize them before the upload. Take into consideration the medium, you know, are you serving images to the mobile users or to the desktop users. Have several versions, of the images prepared for all of them. And if it's possible, avoid complex visual designs. We can do magic today. You can do great stuff with SVGs, with images, with all of the transition effects, CSS. But is that really necessary on every website? It is different, if you're building a website for an artist or video production company. It is definitely different than if you're building a website for primary school. So take that also into the consideration. And if it's possible, allow your videos asynchronously, so they don't congest the loading of the page just because you're waiting for some preview, to look up. Quite popular until recently was unification, or combining resources like CSS files into one. But these days, browsers don't open separate connections for each file anymore. So this isn't so important, to minimize the number of the files as it was before. What can you do if you are a plugin developer? So try to optimize your plugin. There are definitely places where you can remove something that maybe isn't relevant or isn't being used anymore. Explain to the users, if you're running a plugin that has maybe some optimization features in it, what should they do if they want better performance? If they can choose between, I don't know, performance and visual appearance, what should they do? What are the settings? Collaborate with other plugin authors. See if there is a chance to achieve some kind of interoperability. Few releases ago in our toolset plugin, we have introduced something called dynamic sources, which now allows that you can use dynamic sources. That means the content of the custom fields, etc. In all of the core blocks that are in Gutenberg, and we also have cooperation with some other developers that produce other blocks and block-based plugins. So they can, users of those blocks can use our dynamic sources to include the content, So this is great, because if someone has needed another or different plugin just to achieve some functionality, maybe now he can shave off that one plugin off the list, And same as 2 years ago when I was talking about beta version of toolset blocks that was in closed beta. For the end, I would like to show you something that is also not publicly available yet. It will be in 1 or 2 weeks. With toolset blocks 1.5, we have one of the toolset developers here in the audience. I've seen him, so he will be able, probably to jump in if you will have any more technical questions, because for me development is magic, so it's not my area. But what I know is that they've put enormous effort in rewriting the way that toolset assets is dealing with the loading. We don't load all of its block styles anymore, and we are initially loading only the ones that are necessary to block those styles that appear. And we have included in images, toolset block for images, lazy loading. We've done some testing, and you can see on this graph that we have really gotten some great performance improvement. So page content with regular post content loads almost as fast as if there was no toolset blocks. And you can see that when it comes to the external content like YouTube videos, the performance is, in my opinion, staggering, what you can achieve. So this is something that developers can do. And I think that your users that are using your plugins would be very thankful, if you would be able to help them with the speed of their site, if their sites will be faster because of your effort. And I think they will then remain your customers also for the next period. So Thank you for your attention. It's time for the questions and answers. So if you have any questions, just feel free to ask.
Yay. Thank you very much for the presentation. And if anybody has any kind of questions, they can just, I think you can just unmute yourself and ask a question right away. Questions? Don't be shy. No question. So I can ask a question.
Sure.
Sort of to break the ice. Do you think that, I mean, Gutenberg will definitely, I mean, it already has a huge impact on WordPress community, but also, I mean, WordPress is used by like 40% of top 10 million websites. So how can I say this? The speed, like if you were to look at the old way that we built sites and now Gutenberg, do you think that there will be more improvements because it's getting like the Gutenberg itself?
Yeah.
It's getting really big. It's kind of transitioning into what the old WordPress kind of was, like a bunch of plugins, and you had a bunch of add-ons, and now Gutenberg is kind of
yeah, and yeah, it's getting bigger. It does bring new features. I mean, you know, when you took a look at the, I don't know, you know, like presets and templates and everything, those are great things. In my opinion, the WordPress is missing a PR moment or marketing moment, something like that, that would even make users aware of those new improvements. I mean, we are, I think I can say we are all WordPress professionals, you know, and you look at that backend day to day and you read the news about it and you know all of the new stuff that's going on. If you take at an average end user, they don't have time to deal with all of that. They want to input the content, they want to sell the product, they want to put out 100 or 1,000 new products into the WooCommerce and things like that. So for them, I don't know how much are they even aware of all of those changes, especially if the developers create custom dashboards, you create a bunch of custom post types, you know, you actually rebuild the whole interface just for them so they can use it. So yeah, I'm a little bit afraid that it will get big, it will get bloated, but also at the same time, because of all of the new things that it will bring, it will probably make life a lot easier for each new user that comes into the game. You know, people were having a hard time transitioning from classic editor to Gutenberg. For new users, it was, what shortcodes? What are you talking about? I mean, I just click, I enter the content, you know, it's almost drag and drop. So what are you complaining about? So I think, yeah, it could get bloated, but we still have time. We'll see with the full front-end editing, how will it all look? And will this be like first step that could maybe even bring down some of the page builders, you know? What I'm missing at the moment, and this is quite normal, I would say, it's better integration between page builders and blocks, because they're basically, you know, competitions. So I don't see that this could change.
Is it possible even to have like better integrations? I mean, how could you integrate a page builder into Gutenberg, which is kind of trying to be a page builder now with the
opposite way? The opposite way, this is the one that I'm thinking, give the opportunity to users of page builders to incorporate Gutenberg blocks, you can do that, and it is sometimes a little bit hard to achieve, and you won't get 100% of all of the capabilities that you would have, if you were using only Gutenberg, but you can play around with that. But I don't think that 100% compatibility or integration will ever be possible. Because you would end up like, the worst case scenario, you would have something like iframe showing up somewhere, or widget area that would be rendered in separate way and then incorporated into the page builder.
You're working with the tool set, and it's basically kind of a superset of Gutenberg. So like Gutenberg on steroids, you could say, right?
No, this is, so toolset is a collection of plugins. Toolset blocks is just one of them. So there is also types, which is for custom posts, maps, for WooCommerce blocks, etc. So with toolset blocks, you have a couple of dozens of blocks that you can use. Some of them offer the same or similar functionality to the core blocks. For example, like, I don't know, the image block, but with the exception that we can use dynamic sources, So some of them are the same, but the main thing with our blocks are that they offer dynamic sources. They have great integration with our other products and plugins, and they are actually complementing the existing core blocks. So it's not a superset. We are not even developing, we didn't decide, I don't know, okay, let's build one block for tabs. Let's build one blocks for, I don't know, some kind of extremely complicated grid view that people use it. You have other blocks and other plugins that can do that. Now you can use dynamic sources integration, I don't know, with other like blocks, for example, like Stackable, to pull the content using dynamic sources and place it in one of the stackable blocks. So that's what we are actually doing now with this latest release.
What's the feedback from the customers? Because you obviously have customers. What's their feedback on using like Gutenberg so far? Because it's different to say from a developer perspective, like we're using it and we've gotten used to it, using it day to day. But what do the real users say? Yeah,
the real users. So we still have a lot of users, because we've been here for a long time now. They're still using the shortcodes, and sometimes they're missing that. We have the most of the capabilities that we have had in our, let's call it the old version, in toolset views. We have made them possible in toolset blocks. So they're now available to the users that use Gutenberg. So the new users are using it. People are even switching to the block editor, and they like the fact that they can shave off some of the other plugins that they've been using, to achieve something that they couldn't do before, because all of the custom, I don't know, creating custom templates and stuff like that, which was impossible for them, when they had to do things with the themes and coding, they can do now directly, actually, with what you see is what you get approach. So they do use it, and we have even moved in our repository, when you buy a plugin, you still have access to that views, but we now list it in the legacy, because all of our documentation and all of our workflow is Gutenberg related, all of the new things. We really, really believe that Gutenberg is the future, and we have put our cards and we are betting on the Gutenberg.
So, I think Krešimir asked when it will be possible to make header and footer with Gutenberg. Will it be possible at all? And yeah, Maciek said it correctly. I mean, it's possible with full site editing, but you need to have installed Gutenberg plugin, if I'm not mistaken. You need to have like that experimental check selected, and then you can actually use the footer and header stuff. Last time I looked at it, it was like several months ago. and it was really, really bad. so I stopped the experiment. But yeah, you can try to download the Gutenberg plugin and then just enable experimental things. I think their widgets and menus are still kind of experimental, and the full site editing is like still not fully done, at least from what I hear from my colleagues in the team's team. So they're kind of preparing for that, but that's also the future. So it's funny to me to see that we have the Gutenberg on the front end, but from the backend perspective, we're kind of moving back towards the HTML. So it kind of rounds about to the static site. So it's all about the HTML. So we've almost come full circle as web developers, I think. So it's kind of funny, at least for me. Okay, and any more questions, or should we start with the raffle? I don't see anybody complaining. Well, I don't hear anybody complaining. So we have on the raffle 2 JetBrains licenses for any of the editors of your choice. So whether it's PHP-Storm, WebStorm, IntelliJ, I think, or PyStorm or stuff like that. And we have 1-year license for Wiglots. Wiglots is a translation plugin, machine learning tool. And we actually had a presentation on our last meetup about Wiglots. So, okay, we only have, what, 10 people on our raffle. Oh, thank you, Dario. And so the first prize for Wiglots 1 year goes to Milana Zap. Yeah, I'm not sure if she's here.
Bravo.
Yay. So usually we do this all live, and then actually people are applauding, so it's kind of different. Okay, so the next prize goes to Mike Walker for JetBrains license. Yay! I'm not sure if he's here or not. And the last prize for another JetBrains license goes to Josip Mucak. Yay! I'm not sure if it's sure, but okay. Thank you all for participating. We will contact the winners via our email. And if you want to talk, just unmute yourself and turn on your cameras. Yeah, thanks for the talks. The talks were really, really interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially about the static part. So now I'm like, I want to turn my site into static site just for the fun.
Yeah, really, in terms of not worrying about your website, I think it's the best approach. And together with
the page
Gutenberg,
speed. And the page speed is like.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it only takes care of one thing, mostly about the database. So still you have to, most of those core vitals are still on the front end side. So you still have to fix them, because I remember that when I was at some point of my page speed paranoia, when I decided to have 95 plus on mobile, it was and I got to this 95 and I was quite happy. And next day, Google just announced core vitals and it went down to 75. And I was so angry, I decided, oh no. And I'm back to about 98, 99. So
Yes.
Yeah.
They really motivated me.
I got kind of good results on my site on the Lighthouse test. I think they're kind of better on desktop than on mobile, if I'm not mistaken. So it was like, okay, it was like around 80 something or close to 90.
Yeah, I was at some point, my wife just said that if I will add one more fix in terms of optimization to WPOs, she will be really mad at me because I was really spending lots and lots of hours. I even decided just to even remove jQuery because I didn't need it. From what I remember, there are only 2 or 3 scripts, and one of it is Google Analytics. So it's a problem for me, I really think, to remove it as well. But I have Algolia, but it's only loading where it has to, and I'm using this one script called Barba.js. So
for animations.
Yes, exactly. So it looks like a React app, and
we're using that on one of our sites.
It's really cool, and it was a bit like, because first I was giving one presentation about using ACF, so how to create blocks without knowing React, and with Barba how to create a React app without React, looking like React and without React.
Yeah,
I really don't like React, as you see.
We have that on HShift, so this is like one of the sites that we are using for our web. It's like a spin-off part of Infinium. And when we started developing and working on HShift, we're like, it has to be like, wow, it has to have like all of these animations and cool features. And our designers went wild. You know, when you say we want animations and stuff that pops out to a designer, they're like,
I know,
their eyes like glow up. It's like, yes, I'm going to do everything. So there were like tons and tons of animations. And and making everything optimized, and we were working that like 2 years ago when the Gutenberg was like nothing, and everything was breaking every time something updated on the Gutenberg side. It was like so frustrating, and I'm so lucky that I had to work only one small part on it, because working with the animations and stuff is like,
that's
I'm not for the front end, definitely.
Yeah, and in terms of optimization, I remember that at my previous company, I also mentioned, remember, the optimization is very important. I know you want animations, but really, dear designers, remember, optimization is important. And what they thought of, full screen movie at the top. I'm God. So
just saying good morning from Australia here.
Good morning.
Thanks for the presentation. It was really good, and cool to see you visually, Maciek.
Thanks, and really thank you for the plugin. It's, without you, I just wouldn't be doing it, this presentation at all.
Hey, it's super humbling. Like, you know, the plugins, it's miles away from where I want it to be in terms of quality and features. So I'm always surprised when people use it. So that's cool.
No, I think it's really great. It's pretty stable, and it just works.
Cool. That's encouraging to hear. For the presenter from Infinium, I was going to mention I created something kind of last year called Local. I will just put a little link in the chat here. So you mentioned the interest in using the local host option with a static, and I reckon that's the best way, unless you've got other globally distributed team members that need to access that same site. Then localhost is, of course, much more secure, and you get the whole grunt of your local computer. So this local project is aiming to be really simplistic. So I found issues with things like local by flywheel and even Map Pro, and that they usually work up to a certain point, and then when I want to fiddle around or try and get them optimized for the performance of static site generation, they just weren't. It just took you down a rabbit hole you didn't want to go down. So one day I had the idea, okay, this is a way I could do this simply. So you just copy and paste a line, or you can run the shell script, download it and run it, and it gives you an interactive wizard to launch hundreds, maybe thousands of local WordPress sites on your machine without too much interaction required. So that might be interesting.
And it's using Docker.
It is, yeah. Kind of reluctantly, I'm, I think like Maciek, I'm a bit of a static site purist. I don't want too much of the Jamstack involved in things, and so similar to that, like Docker to me is like, I don't want to have a whole layer of virtualization running and stuff, but it was the easiest way to get cross-platform across the major or the most popular OSs. So it works nicely on Windows, Mac, and Linux.
Yeah, that's nice. I had like some issues with running WordPress on Docker, and then I discovered the Valet, the Laravel Valet, which is just running on my machine. So it's like, I don't need any kind of virtualization. And I used VVV before. That was like so slow. So,
I remember that with VVV, I had a problem because it was working great until some point when it just stopped working at all. And it was very frustrating at that point. Because I'm a Windows user. From some point, I decided that I really love Ultrabooks, and Linux on Ultrabooks is just working very poor. And it turns out that Windows isn't so bad as it was, but still with the local environment, I really had to test lots of things. I ended with Laragon, and it works. It works. I think that Delicious Brains wrote about it for the first time when that's how I found it, and it works really great.
Does anyone here know the Devilbox? It's like
I know from you. You shown me in Prague last year.
It's just, I had the same experience with VVV. It was working for me quite reliably on Linux, but it was so slow. So at some point it really made my work ineffective, and I had to switch to something else. And like Docker was the second choice for me. So far, I'm happy.
I was very happy on VVV.
Yeah, Devilbox is really cool.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't get what did you say?
Oh, if that's me, I was saying that Devilbox is really cool. But the issue I found with it, unfortunately, I was looking for the perfect one to use with WP to static. But the way that together, if you don't kind of set the site URL to the same port that WordPress is running on, then when you're doing the crawling aspect of static site generation, that can throw some issues. So that's where like local is. I didn't have to really care about a Docker environment that people would use locally and then sync to live. It's really catered just for like that local and then publishing to static. So it's got that port sort of system set up right.
Yeah, that makes sense. That Devilbox is like, it has a different use case, and it's by no means minimalistic, as you mentioned about local. So it's something completely different.
I also remember that I played for some time with Lando. It's a Docker wrapper, and it makes it much easier to use and really nice. From what I remember, Pantheon is even using it officially for their tool set, and it works really nice. But still, to be honest, on Windows, there are still some problems with natively using Docker. So without using this Linux layer on Windows, it's
the Windows subsystem for Linux. Yes. Exactly I had trouble making it work with Windows Home because it has the virtualization disabled.
Exactly.
So then I ended up with Docker Toolbox for Windows, and then connecting it through the WSL. And well, it took me only 2 weeks to make it work, but it's great. Much recommended.
But you weren't bored. You weren't bored, so
yeah. You learn a lot about Windows and Docker and Linux at the same time. Very effective.
So can someone confirm, do you need Windows 10 Pro to run, you know, like normal Docker on Windows now?
At the time,
So I sort of ran into that last time. That changed Docker in a way that if you ran like the older style Docker, you could still get away with it on home, but it's like you're forced to go Pro just to use I don't know, the virtualization or hypervisor or however they're doing it on Windows.
Last time I checked, it was, as you say, like on home, you cannot really use the native virtualization. I'm not sure if Docker managed to kind of work around that, or if this has changed in Windows. No idea, but like I think 2 years ago I checked this and it was like that. So you.
Yes, from what I see, the Hyper-V is only on Windows Pro, Enterprise, or Education. And without Hyper-V, you won't have the native.
Well, what can I say?
Yeah, so this is a small problem. Luckily, I got the Pro version. So.
Solving the problem.
Yeah, I thought the
for Maciek.
Yeah.
A question about, you know, the €2 hosting. You know, that's about that $5 US mark, I guess, or such. Is that still cost prohibitive in Poland for, like, say, a student? Is that going to be a barrier, even that €2 amount?
It was because the fact that I'm using this hosting, it's a bit by accident, because when I was preparing myself for WordCamp Europe workshops, I needed to buy 2 cheapest servers with SSH, because I wanted to show some nice deployment flow, and I needed to have 2 separate servers where I could show how rsync works and so on and so on. And that's why I found this @host.pl, that's how they called. And for some reason, I bought one of their servers, and I'm still using it because they are cheap. But yes, this is really, in terms of speed, this is really such a shitty server. I think they have, especially there is a problem with their database from what I see. Because as you saw, the static is working really nice, but the moment when the website starts connecting to the database, but overall I think that this hosting is even quite cheap for typical Poland hosting. So, and it has SSH, so it's
okay.
So really for 2.
I would love to see. Yeah, I would love to see it go even cheaper. I mean, that sounds just because, you know, when you've got, you know, when we're in tech, we've got a lot more money than most people in the world, and so, you know, when talking about things like accessibility and open source and these sort of things, that cost is often neglected, and we just assume, okay, a few dollars a month is fine. But I'd really love to see, you know, basically like free dev site hosting. There's, you know, from your site. Yeah, it'd be great to be able to give people a way to have a free dev server and then publish to, say, GitHub pages, keep everything completely free using that WordPress aesthetic flow.
Yeah, I think that together with Cloudflare.
For me, when I see VPSs, it's like the $5 mark hasn't really come down a lot in recent years.
Yeah.
Hi guys, thanks a lot. Thank you for giving me opportunity to talk after 2 years again on the WordPress Meetup. I hope that the next one will be in person. Although this is
don't wait for next 2 years.
No. But this is great. I must say that I really like the fact that I've seen that people from all over the world have come, you know, to our Zagreb WordPress Meetup, you know, and it is a really nice thing to see.
Yeah, so I think next time you should change the name a bit. It's not Zagreb WordPress Meetup, but International Zagreb.
International Zagreb. Yeah, we should have put in the brackets like virtual-international.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And yeah, then going back to the to cheap hosting. I mean, as you said, with static and using Cloudflare, I think everyone would be able to, and with something like GitHub Pages, because I think GitHub Pages are also in those free accounts. I'm not sure.
Yeah. GitHub Pages performance isn't as good as, say, Netlify. And then now there's Cloudflare Pages is coming on the market. They're in public beta, I think, or private beta.
Exactly.
And that's pretty exciting. That'll be quite good.
Yeah. So overall, I think that there is quite a lot of possibilities, especially when you would develop your website on your local host. So you could just host it for free, and it would be quite fast. And yeah, because like I said, I didn't believe too much in WPOs and in the Polish version. That's why I always try to have it as cheap as possible. And as a side effect, I learned that it's really possible to host 2 websites that are equally fast all over the world for almost nothing.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, currently the only thing we are spending money on is a girl which is translating the Polish version into English, and that's all of our costs. So
it's coming along real nice. Like it's picking up, so that's great. And I really like the fact that you have like featured like editors.
Yeah,
for the newsletter. That's really cool.
Yes, I like this a lot. To be honest, I think that Masters WP was the first, but they did it during summer holidays, and when they didn't want to just
do it themselves.
Exactly, and we changed it a bit. But to be honest, thanks to guest editors, I had the chance to have my current work, because I started to, because some people in the WordPress community are, especially from my perspective, are like some rock stars. I would never before thought of, I don't know, talking to Maciek like directly, because wow, she's the CEO of Yoast. Wow. Yeah. And I am just Maciek Palmowski from Poland. No one knows me. And it turns out it's not like that. Really, our community is so open, and every time I talk with someone new and someone who I've always thought that, whoa, it's a rock star that probably won't talk to me, and few hours later I got the response, yes, of course I would like to be a guest editor on WPOs, and it's wow, terrific.
Yeah, that's what keeps me like pulling back towards WordPress. Every time I develop something with WordPress, there's like, oh, this is not working, or oh, this core feature is hard-coded and I cannot change it. Oh, this WordPress, frustration. But it's the community that like keeps me coming back. Especially when we had live WordCamps and everything. Just talking to people, meeting people. It's just an amazing feeling. I think we have the best community in the world, definitely.
Yeah, that's really true. I still remember that during WordCamp Berlin, out of nowhere, one guy just comes to me and say, "Thank you for help." I mean, who the heck is he? And he says, "I'm from Mexico, and I remember you because I remember your avatar because you helped me with some timber problem." And I was like, "Whoa, nice. I have a fan in Mexico. That's true."
Yeah.
Yes, it was
that's
so
nice.
amazing. And yes, and I also think that because when we organized WordCamp in Łódź, we decided that we would like to invite quite a few people outside the WordPress community, because just to mix it up a bit. Of course, it ended with the fact that few members of the community were angry at us because how could we? Because but overall it was great, and all of those people from outside were just amazed about how friendly we are, how we behave, just like a family, and also the thing that is so different apart from other, especially developer-centric communities, that we are not only developers, and the fact that we have developers talking together with people from UI, UX, front ends, back ends, translators, everyone. This really creates so many opportunities to do something different, better. And on the other hand, when I see how many really great projects in open source that are only created by developers, at some point you see they're only developed by developers. We are a bit
I'm feeling quite targeted now.
Yeah, but it's right, and I think we have like a similar experience here in Prague. Like some years ago, we started doing the WordCamp by making the topics or the focus more wide, and we also included some marketing or like not only strictly WordPress related stuff, but more like website related stuff. Or like we have a very like we had a lot of many years we had like talks about law and law on the internet, for example, like what are the not only GDPR but all sorts of topics like that, and I think it really helped the community as such.
I remember one of our local meetups, we had a project manager from Infinitum, and she talked about how she's managing all the projects, not just WordPress ones. And we had like a huge turnout of people. So we always try to diversify like talks in our meetups. Well, when we had like physical meetups, we always wanted to make it not only a strictly developer topic, like 3 developer topics, because that can kind of be, you know, tedious and boring. So we want always try to like diversify it, like have some designer talk about something, maybe some content editor talk about something. So I mean, other meetups and other communities don't have that, because WordPress really encompasses all of these areas, you know, so that's awesome.
Also, case studies are great. Many people really enjoy those.
But on the other hand, only few companies want to share how they did something.
Well, it depends. I mean, you can have like different scopes of the projects, and sometimes even like small projects or like even freelancers sharing how they work can be very useful, because like many WordCamp attendees would be also freelancers. So just this kind of I don't know, like sharing our workflows, and it doesn't really have to be strictly related to WordPress, but it still is relevant.
And for example, I remember that this Indian company Camp, at some point they shared a really interesting case study about how they created dynamic documentation for some plugin. And it was, for me at least, it was really amazing. And then I was really also amazed, but in a bad way, that I think that we were the only newsletter that shared this information. No one else thought that this might be interesting. Okay, maybe I'm just a sucker for case studies, because I love them, because I think this is one of the best ways to learn. But I was really it was really strange that it turned out that only WPOs decided to write about it. And
I think it's possibly the topic. Like, I love living documentation and TDD and BDD and that kind of thing. But that's that focus on quality where it's not directly visible as money to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, let's be honest. The most articles that came up during the week are, I don't know, 20 best themes for 10 best plugins for. So some may think that
clickbait articles.
Yeah, it's really hard to find. I mean, there are weeks when there are like 30 new articles per week, but sometimes it's really poor and the quality is also.
I mean, we were thinking about doing the same, but it's at one hand, it's kind of hard to find a good content. And on the other hand, you already have like a lot of quality newsletters and like, competing with them.
There are not so much from, at least from in our WordPress community. I think that are together 6 or 7 newsletters. We have WP Mail that I'm having more and more problems with them because I think they publish like everything, and it's so the filter value is a bit less. I really love how Ben and Alex in Masters WP does it, but sometimes during the week there is nothing about WordPress because it was a week like this, but they really dig in about the article. The same does repository. And we also have Gutenberg Times, which is only focused on one thing. And Birgit is doing really an amazing stuff. And it's and overall, when I had the chance to talk first time with Birgit, she's just amazing, an amazing person. And what else do we got? And I think we have Post Status and WP Weekly, which are quite similar. But I still think there is space for more focused on one thing.
So like a niche thing. Right?
Exactly. Because I think that only the Gutenberg Times is doing such thing. They decided that Gutenberg is the only topic, and great. But there are still many things that could be covered. Oh, and Ian Paulson with this WP Trends. Then there was just one episode because it's quite a new thing, but it's all about WordPress business, and it's also a great idea. So I think there is still a lots of space for doing some more, like you said, but you would have to focus on the niche.
How about WordPress podcasts?
Oh God,
they're popular. They've become popular in the last year.
Yeah, like all podcasts have, but
but you have to find good ones. I think I started listening to audiobooks lately, not so much podcasts. I'm still like trying to find a good one. I think so it's just audiobooks for me so far.
Okay, I think I can tell that probably next month even WPOs will have one.
Okay,
podcast. Nice.
In English or in Polish?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, well, because we are our sponsor, the WP Desk, is already having a podcast, so we decided that we will help with the Polish one, and they will help with our English one. So it's a collaboration like this. But I think with our Polish newsletter, I think we hit the ceiling already, and even if it may look like Polish community is quite big, I think that those who are interested a bit more, we already
the active part of the community is usually quite tiny. We have this same situation.
Yeah, exactly, and this is quite a problem, and we see it during every WordCamp. I mean, it's great that we can meet the same people every year. On the other hand, we are meeting the same people every year. So,
but then again, do you have some like strategy how to approach new members of the community and try to involve them, or because that's something I'm also thinking a lot about lately. Considering
that in terms of our Polish community, we never had any strategy in any ways. Yeah, I mean, even the main difference between Polish and Czech community about organizing WordCamps, you have the same core team, because I see the names are always quite
more or less, yes.
Yes, exactly. You do it in the same city in a similar way. I saw all your notes in the Notion. Yeah, it was like, yeah, but it's great, and this and really, not only that you have had it all, I really remember how excited you were talking about it, and it really shows. It really shows much that And on the other hand, the Polish community, each time the WordCamp is organized in a different city by a different crew, and yes, and we have to start all over again, because different city means different place, and the place is the most expensive one, and so on and so on.
But you know, I would say we might have had the same situation here, but we only have one crew and only have one. Okay, there is also WordCamp Brno, but that's like I would say different type of event. It's much smaller, and it has like different target audience, I guess. So these two operate independently, but like we don't have so many big cities to choose from. So, and same with the community, like the core team that's doing WordCamps in Prague. It's basically same, because there are not that many active people that want to get involved. But I mean, it's slowly kind of changing, or like people are coming and going, so there is some flow, but still.
But you know, in Poland, I think that cities that could organize a WordCamp, I don't know, 6 or 7, that's all. So it's also not too much. And in terms of organizing something bigger like Europe, I think we have only Warsaw and maybe Krakow or Gdańsk. It will depend which airport has more connections.
Are you considering to apply for WordCamp Europe at some point when it's possible?
No, because we don't have a crew that would that would do it. I mean, if we are not able to have the same crew organizing a WordCamp, so I don't think it would be possible to organize Europe. And I think in theory it could be possible, because if I mean, there was this WordCamp Europe in Serbia, so why not WordCamp Europe in Poland? It's
sure. I mean, it's doable. You just need a team and the confidence of the WordCamp Europe organizers team, I guess.
I think there could be one problem. I would say money-wise, because, like I said, from what I remember, the airport is one of the most important things for organizing Europe. And we have only 3 bigger airports. One would be Gdańsk, Warsaw, which is the biggest one, and Krakow. So Warsaw and Krakow are so expensive. I remember even in Łódź we had few problems when it went to the finances. It wasn't so easy to talk with the central. Yes, and Łódź is much cheaper than Warsaw. So I'm not sure. From what I saw from prices in shops, Serbia was much cheaper than Poland.
Yeah, but I mean, there was also WordCamp in Paris at some point.
Yeah.
So.
Which is much more expensive. That's true.
Yeah.
And how does the community looks in Croatia?
It's small. I mean, we had 2 WordCamps so far. So
in Zagreb
in Zagreb and Split. Split was in 2016.
Yeah.
Zagreb was 2017, and in Zagreb there were like 300 or 500 people on WordCamp. Right? Somewhere between that number. And the Zagreb one was really nice for me. I mean, I was a speaker there in 2017. So it was okay, and we planned to have WordCamp in 2020, and then everything fell apart, unfortunately. So, but we had like great plans, like, oh, we could do this venue and that venue, and I know a lot of people from the WordPress community. I could ask people to come and be a speaker, and yeah. And we get asked like, oh, do a virtual WordCamp, but it's, I don't know, it's just not the same.
So you don't have the plans for the next year yet, or?
We didn't.
We didn't actually start to plan. We just hoped just to continue when we last stand from the last year. So maybe catch up with some plans and start for the next year. But everything is so unsure, and we just want the live WordCamp, not a virtual one. So and there's a lot of preparation and everything on front. So if we start to do it, then we need to be sure that everything will be fine and that we will be able to hold this. But I'm listening to you guys about here and city there. We have a lot of coastal cities in Croatia that can be very attractive for I don't know, some future WordCamps. So but our community is small, but it's concentrated mostly around Zagreb, I think. Because all the great agencies and companies and everyone that's working with WordPress and with everything in the IT is mostly concentrated in Zagreb. So there is a small amount in other parts of Croatia, but most in Zagreb. So all IT professionals, designers, and everyone is just in Zagreb. So that's the reason why we had so large numbers on the WordCamp in Zagreb, for instance. But Split, maybe it's I don't know, more attractive for foreign visitors, but it's also expensive as hell. So
and you cannot get people through the airport in Split to WordCamp. Like the capacity
not from. It's too small.
I've experienced it personally, and at the end of season, I will never forget that.
Can be like a third world country stuff when you start.
It was just Split. Like you couldn't sit on the floor because there was too many people, but it was okay.
During when we didn't had pandemic, it was like the tourist season was crazy in Croatia, and everything was about tourism. I mean, we lived off of tourism, so when the pandemic happened, it was like
I can imagine it was a great hit.
It was like a huge hit. I mean, we still had tourists on the coast, and I remember because I was in Hvar, on island Hvar, and there were people there, but it wasn't like packed as it used to on earlier years. So I'm not sure. And this whole pandemic really changed everything. So it's kind of like we don't want to get our hopes up by starting to plan something for 2022. Just to have it like, oh no.
I think that would be like a huge waste of energy and setting yourself up for the disappointment, because like imagining organizing an event and then having it canceled like 2 months in advance, or like even that's so. For example, we've already decided that the next one in Prague will be also virtual. Just it makes it very easy now.
Yeah, but you had like a really good, I mean, from what I've read on your blog post, everything like went really well, and you've really organized it well. So I think that like the Prague community, if you have anything, you have like your organizational skills are like off the chart.
Well, I don't know. I think we are also quite lucky to have like good people in the team. I think that this guy who was handling the streaming services and the recording, he was like, if he was not so patient and also initiative, he has like a lot of great ideas, and he really raised the quality or allowed us to prevent a lot of prevent making a lot of mistakes, because so we were really inexperienced with online events, so it was we are really lucky.
Great.
Sorry,
the Prague went really great.
Yeah, so that's why I was asking about online events, because I think it can be done, and if you know what to be careful about, it's not as, I would say, it's easier than a physical event. You just need to know what to pay attention to.
Yeah, it's because from the online events, apart from some smaller meetups, we had WordFest. It also went quite okay. I saw that WP Engine with their decode also did a great job. By the way, their idea about using Slack as a way for the community to talk with each other went really great. Really, one of the best ideas. I think much better than chats in Hopin.
Yeah, does Slack have the ability to have like group calls, or is it?
No,
did they use it only for chat?
It was like all the presentations were, I don't know, it was either YouTube or Vimeo.
I see.
But the whole community, the whole Q&A, everything was on Slack.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I really wanted to avoid, actually, to have people running between different apps and services. And that's I mean, I get it that like one thing is practical for something and the other, but like,
to be honest, I was thinking about one thing. I'm just not sure it's fully possible to use Discord, because I think that Discord also has some tools for audio, but I'm not sure about
yes
that.
And no. We have actually used Discord internally for streaming.
Oh,
for the live input, it was actually streamed from Discord to Hopin. But the problem with Discord is if you use too many people, like if too many people use video, it has really like crazy CPU consumption. So you can use it for audio calls or for chat, but it's like less practical for maybe some setup or tweaking it could be done, but and in general Discord is quite a great tool, but
I get it.
You have to be careful about this, I think.
I remember that WordPress was using they're using some tool of their own, if I remember.
Whom do you mean?
WordFest and with the whole London WordPress community.
Yes.
They're using StreamYard together with something, and they have this everything bundled as well.
Yes, that's right. I think it was based on StreamYard.
Yes, and overall it also works very nice. I think that in looking at all the events, the first WordCamp Europe wasn't too good, but they were first. They were really experimenting with all. And from what I remember, they have chosen Zoom because of accessibility reasons. Yeah.
But actually, we had one of our speakers who cannot see, and he was able to work with Hopin sessions.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, he just managed to connect and participate, and he told me it was way better than Discord.
Okay.
When it comes to accessibility of Discord, he used the word that he said it's wild. So
okay, yeah.
But yeah, well, for example, Hopin, it has some potential for improvement when it comes to accessibility. With Zoom, or like, I understand why WordCamp Europe team chose this, and they really had to make these changes very fast. So
exactly, they just need something that will work, and that will work right now.
Also, it's also, for example, with Hopin, it's a matter of us like financial scalability, because we paid like $1 per attendee, give or take.
Okay.
So there was some budget.
Exactly. So with WordCamp, but to be honest, sponsors of WordCamp Europe, I think it would be really possible for them to use it.
That's right.
On the other hand, Hopin may not be as good as it is now, because everything now started to change really fast.
Back then, probably not. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, and from what I saw, that Hopin is also working on the mobile application. This was a bit of what was missing.
I didn't try that, to be honest, because.
Yeah, because I remember that someone from my company was wondering where is the application, and he found that it's in plans and it should be released soon.
Yeah. Well, they told me the same thing about the accessibility improvements.
So you say that you paid $1 per?
Yeah, they have quite a strange pricing scheme. Like in the first tier, you pay $100 per month, and you get one organizer account.
Yes.
And you are allowed to have like 100 attendee registrations per month.
Okay.
And if you need more registrations per month, you need to buy another organizer account for $100 for that month.
Okay, I get it.
But to make it more complicated, they kind of like, if you buy it in half of your in the middle of the period where you get the invoice, then you will pay half, but they will also give you only half of the registrations. So like, it depends on the day where you purchase this extra account.